Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Terry Ryan. I've devoted this channel to talking about things that we go through during our life, incidences and little trials and everything, little things that come up along the way, that are little tidbits that can possibly help. I have been through domestic violence. I have written a book about it. It's called I Survived Domestic Violence and Being Stalked. You can find this book on my website. The website address is terry with an I -ryan.com.au, and if you go onto that site, there is a little tool on that site where you can purchase the book. Other places you can get the book is if you're living around the Heathcote area, you can get it at Swirl's gift shop. Also my publisher at Animal Dreaming, they also have a stock list of books as well, so you can look me up on there as well. And recently I have been going through little topics of things that I have learnt along the way. I wrote the story in my book. I've written the story of what happened to me, my escape, and also I included at the end little tidbits, things that I learnt along the way. And I have been going through one by one the topics of things that I've been through. But since publishing the book, I've realised I missed so many things about what I'd learnt because other things are coming up and little issues come up from day to day, and it sort of jogs my memory, and I remember other topics that I have learnt along the way. So today what I wanted to talk about was the topic of enabling. Now I want to give you the definition of what enabling means, just in case you don't know. Enabling is giving the authority or means to do something, make it possible. Authorise, sanction, warrant, licence, qualify, allow, permit, entitle, empower, accredit, legalise, validate, and there are many other meanings to the word of enable. But the way I'm talking about enabling today is about enabling people to do the wrong thing. And this was one enormous lesson, and I don't know why I didn't include it in my book, because I learned about enabling when I was going through domestic violence, and after I split up from my abuser, I did actually go along to a group called AlAnon, and it's actually a group for families of alcoholics, and they sort of had similar strategies to AA and Alcoholics Anonymous. But one massive thing that AlAnon did was they taught you not to enable your abuser, or the drinker, or the person you're living with who may be a drug addict or who may be an alcoholic, and they told you what to do to not enable that person. And I must say, when I first went there and started listening to the stories of how to do it, and a terribly difficult thing to do if you are a sensitive, emphatic person. It's very hard to not be an enabler, because we want to help all the time. If we're asked to do something, we want to help, and we're the first one that'll put our hand out, or we'll even offer before help is even asked. So that's it's a tremendous thing to learn not to be an enabler. And when I say enabler, I can give you some examples. When I was going through the domestic violence, quite often my husband did get in trouble with the law, and he would drive without a licence, or he would go and assault somebody, and he was taken to court time and time again. He got massive fines put on him, and each and every time that he got a fine put on him, he would go to his mother and ask for his mother to pay the fine. We had no money at the time, and she, even though she didn't like doing it, and she always said, don't do it again, don't do it again. He continued to do the wrong thing and continued to go and ask for money for the fine, to pay the fine out. And his mother was actually quite frightened of him, and so she did reluctantly give it to him. I remember close to the end of her life, I knew that she did have a savings, and I knew also that she was being sucked dry with the money. He continued to come, and I actually encouraged her to go and do her flat up and put new carpet in, get the place painted and get it all prettied up so that she could live in comfort. And I did encourage her to do that. But so long as he was alive, he continued to get in trouble, and he continued to go to her and get the money. Well, the thing was, naturally, he'd had a tough beginning. He had a hard upbringing when he was a child, and so he had been put in naughty boys' home, and he had been kicked out on the street when he was young. And so therefore she had somewhat guilt there to not give him the money. And this is what a person this is one way that a person will get to you, by putting a guilt trip on you so that you can enable them. And it worked like a gem in her case, because each and every time she went there, and the excuse she made to herself was, I'm keeping him out of prison, so I'm doing the right thing, I'm looking after him. But in actual fact, what it did was, it gave him license. He gave him license to go out and say, well, it doesn't matter if I go out and I, break the law, I'll keep driving my car, I'll keep going belting up people and doing the wrong thing, because I know when I go to court, I can just go to Mum and she'll pay the fines. And it does nothing to help them. It does nothing at all to help them. It just encourages them to do it, gives them license to do it, and that's what happens. Now, when I went to AlAnon, I heard some quite interesting stories about how the different alcoholics would come home and they would collapse in their driveway in a pool of vomit and things like that, which is what also my abusive partner used to do as well. And of course, being the person who is nice and wanting to look after everybody, I would go out there and I'd pick him up and clean him up and put him to bed, and that used to happen the times that he wasn't violent and snapping, and I'd put him to bed. Well, in the morning he'd wake up, and of course he would just say, oh, I can't remember anything that happened. I'd say, well, can you remember collapsing in the driveway, vomiting all over the place, me putting you to bed? No, I can't remember any of that. And I was virtually giving him a license to go out and do what he was doing. Now, in AlAnon, what they taught me was everybody is responsible for their own actions. So therefore, if they're going out on a bender and they do come home and they collapse and they fall in the driveway, well, leave them there, because if they can't see how bad they are and can't see how low down they have got, then they won't recognise that they need help. They won't realise how far down they have fallen. So therefore, to make somebody responsible of themselves is to more or less allow them to live the consequence. And so this was quite a hard lesson for me to learn. I had quite a job learning this, because I felt dreadful having to just leave him there in a state like that, or and along the way we kind of tend to do this for our own children too. We feel that we need to do everything for our children, and in the long run it's not teaching them how to be responsible for themselves. So there is so much as a parent and as a wife or a girlfriend that we can do for our partners or our children, before we realise, well, you know, they are responsible for themselves and we are responsible for us. And if we're constantly picking up after everybody else and doing things for everybody else, it's going to leave us with nothing. We're just going to be drained. You quite often find money too. It might be that they're asking for money to do this or that, and I've had that in my past too, where I've been asked for money. They've stated a specific purpose. It's been a purpose that seemed valid to me, to help them out, and then later on I found out that they didn't use it for that at all. They went out and they spent this, that or the other, and in the meantime I could have used that money myself to pay a bill or something. The other enabling too is making excuses for why people don't do what they're supposed to be doing. I used to make excuses with my abuser. I used to say in the beginning, when people used to say, oh, why do you stay with him? You know, and I used to make excuses saying, oh, well, he had a bad childhood, and, you know, and he's not really that bad until he drinks, until he's got alcohol in him, or he's under the influence of his prescription drugs. I continually made excuses for him, excuses for his behaviour. And in the long run, it didn't serve me, and it surely didn't serve him either, because while I was making excuses for him and I was staying where I was instead of leaving so that he could see how bad his behaviour was affecting me, I stayed there and I copped all the abuse, and I had to go through what I had to go through until I got to the position where I knew, well, enough was enough. I couldn't take it anymore. And quite often we can make excuses, and in the end of the relationship, before I left, I realised he didn't need alcohol or prescription drugs to be and do what he did to me. He treated me as his nature, because he needed none of that in the end to be nasty to me. It was just his nature to do that. So the message that I'm saying is how bad it is to be an enabler. We need to realise that people are responsible for their own behaviour. Don't make excuses for bad behaviour, because everybody is responsible for the way they act. And also, if you're going out with somebody, you might be out at a dinner party or something with your partner, and all of a sudden your partner snaps and is guilty, like starts ranting and raving or doing whatever he's doing, and all of a sudden you'll feel guilty, you know, you feel ashamed, you feel like jumping under the table. This happened to me many times, that I used to feel so guilty about it and so awful about it for everybody else's sake. But once again, I was enabling that as well. It wasn't me. I was taking on his shame. I mean, it wasn't anything that I'd done. It was him. He'd done that, or he'd acted that way. So therefore, if you're with somebody, or it could be a friend or a son or a daughter or mother or father, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, whatever, and they're acting badly, don't take it upon yourself and feel the shame, because it's not your shame. Don't take it on. Let them wear it. Let them wear their own shame. If they've behaved badly, then it's up to them to be responsible for the way that they acted. So that was just a little bit that I wanted to say on enabling, and that was a huge lesson, and I really don't know how I missed that actually in the book. So anyway, I hope everybody's had a great week this weekend, and they have a great week this week. It's Monday here in Australia, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. If you like hearing these little topics, please press the subscribe button and the bell so you won't miss one of the videos, and look forward to seeing you all. Bye.